All right. Tracy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
For those of you who don't know Tracy, she has done a lot of things. Mostly in the web world, so like JavaScript based, but she started over 16 companies I've seen on her LinkedIn. And I want to start with talking about how you got started with all these companies. Have you always been this way?
Yeah.
And yeah, in general, like it's kind of crazy. I think 16 companies, and
Yeah.
you're a young lady still, very successful. I'm curious, how did this all come about?
I don't think I started 16 companies. I can't remember how many. I mean, I feel like maybe at least 10 potentially.
Hmm.
But I think like just at a young age, I just really liked starting things, right? I remember my first company was jewelry. I sat on my boyfriend's bed and made jewelry all weekend, and I was like, wow, I should probably start selling some of this jewelry.
Interesting.
So that was like the first one. And doing corporate got me a little bit bored, so I started like three companies in like 1 week, just because I was like so bored.
Yeah, there's one like portion of your LinkedIn that I looked at when I think it was only like, yeah, like a year period, and there's
Mm.
several companies that were
Yeah,
started in that year
yeah,
period. Yeah. So
yeah. I
just
mean,
bored, like you can't, you just got too much going on, or you can't stay still, or what?
yeah, I think I just get excited about things. So this is my problem, and I have to tone it back a little. I'll give you an example. Like, when the pandemic hit, I was like, oh my god, I'm going to bake bread. Okay, let's bake bread. Okay, let's buy 100 pounds of flour. Like, let me just, and I just go all in, right?
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
because I just want to do something. And, I need to stop doing that with my side projects, because like even knitting, I learned how to knit, and then I have like two things of knitting, and I'm over it already. Like, what am I
Yeah.
going to do with all this yarn? So companies thankfully are a little bit different. I feel like I've had like two successful ones. So I feel like this dot labs is the second like really successful one. The first one was DishCrawl, and I sold that about 5 years ago, and then kind of moved on to, didn't really know what I wanted to do and
Can you tell us
learned
about
how to
DishCrawl?
code. And yeah, so DishCrawl was interesting because, I still remember going to my first conference, an API conference, and I was like, what's an API? I mean, I had no development experience or anything, right? I'm like, oh, APIs, that sounds so cute. This was back in 2008, when like APIs were like the cool thing to do. I
Sure.
mean, I could, now it's like whatever, but and I started this, got a team together, wanted to build something. We ended up building like a food related startup, and we took people on food adventures. So we were, in 1 year, we actually expanded from like 15 different cities to like 250 cities. Our team grew the same size, since we had like about, one person in each city. So that was crazy, amazing growth, but basically taking people on food adventures.
How
And
do
it
you
was very
start?
tech enabled.
How do you start something like that? Like you said, I got some people together and I wanted to build something.
Yeah.
How like specifically, how does that start? Like, does it start with convincing one person, like, hey, I want to build something. I don't know what it is, but come with me. Let's try and build something. Or is it like, I have an idea, and then I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
what does that look like?
I'm trying to think of, when I started DishCrawl. So when I started DishCrawl, I was surrounded by tech people. I was a receptionist at a tech company,
Okay, in
and I
Silicon
had
Valley.
like these hardware friends. And one guy was like, "Oh, I'm really into JavaScript," and I was like, "Oh, what's that? Whatever. Okay, let's build something." So initially, I just wanted to get a bunch of people together and like, okay, we have smart people, like let's
Mm,
do something, right?
okay.
But then when we really started getting going, I actually put a call out on Twitter. I was like, hey, looking for co-founders. And that's actually how I found my first two co-founders, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And then we just started building. So, it's very much like that. Like, I still remember, I was asking an investor for advice. He was the founder of Match.com. And I was like,
Mhm.
hey, I'm about to go look for investment. Being in the Silicon Valley, that's what you do, right?
Yeah.
And I started going through the pitch deck, and like I remember calling my co-founder, and I was like, I think this guy wants to join our team. Like, this was after a few meetings, right? And I
Mhm.
was like, how could the founder of Match.com want to join our team? And I was like, dude, if he joins our team, like, will you quit your job? To my co-founder. And he's like, yes, I will quit my job if this guy joins the team, because he was so incredulous about it. And it ended up happening. And like, so like those types of things I think are just like very natural for some people.
So sounds like to you.
So, sorry, Mitch, I was going to say, so up until that point, it was a side hustle, right? Everyone was still at their jobs and working on this like free time weekends.
I didn't quit my job until we actually could support it. So I worked on, DishCrawl for the first 2 years, just like, nights and weekends. But my corporate job wasn't like that, hard.
Consuming.
Gotcha. Okay.
So does this sort of thing just like happen? Like when you live in Silicon Valley, you just happen to be a receptionist working around a bunch of tech people, and you're like, hey, tech people, come with me.
Like weirdly enough, it really does happen more organically in the Bay Area. Like I remember this one time, I love going to this one restaurant called the Meadowood, and the Meadowood, I saw, the two, Ron Conway, if you guys know Ron Conway and his involvement with like Facebook and stuff like that.
I do not.
One of the other like initial Facebook investors, and I was like, oh my God, you just see them there, So I think like because for some reason people in the Bay Area just have this energy about them where they're like, oh, I'm doing a startup. Everybody's doing a startup on their free time, or a lot of people are. So you just like find those people. Like there is this hackerspace with that, Instacart and some of these other companies started out of. And, it starts off small. And then I feel like it's just knowing the right people. And, the fact that they're all there anyways, it's just super easy.
I'm sure that's, a big part is just everybody's just sort of there. And like say you live in an apartment building, that the guy next to you or the girl next to you on both sides is like 80% a programmer.
Yes.
And like, and so like, no matter what, you go to the grocery store, you go to the coffee shop, you go wherever, you're going to be around programmers. And if you have a conversation, it's inevitably leads to, the neat things that they have or the ideas that they have. I guess that makes sense. There's
hotspots. There's hotspots. Like there's Red Rock Coffee in Mountain View. There's Coupa Cafe in Palo Alto. And like everyone's pitching people and,
It's like a petri dish of like, or like programming creativity, like all in Silicon Valley, it sounds like.
Yeah. Like it's very, and it's funny because people are like, oh, is that really real? I mean, this is why a lot of people move to the Bay Area, and for a lot of reasons, it's totally worth it, right? Like, but I don't know, it's just like easier to get things done in a lot of ways. But you also talk about the balance in life, like, buying a house for $1 million, that's totally run down.
Yeah, doesn't sound fun either.
Yeah, like it's a question of like, does the balance of your life and the kind of, sacrifices, I mean, they don't think of it as sacrifices. I grew up in the Bay Area, so I never did until I left.
Sure.
Do those like outweigh the benefit that you get?
What do you think the sacrifices are now that you've left, or when you left?
Well, after I sold my first company, I was like no longer tied down to an office. So there was this boy, and I was like, oh, you live in Raleigh, North Carolina. Let's go there. So I went to go visit him, and I was like, what? Why is it so cheap here? I was paying $3,500 for a 2-bed, 2-bath, like not even in the middle of anywhere. Like it was like in the boonies. It was nice, but it was in the boonies. And then, I found out that I could get an apartment in downtown for like $1,100. And literally I was like, okay, I'm signing a 1-year lease. And then that was the end of it.
So how long did that last until you were back to California?
Well, I still haven't left California. I mean, I feel like I'm basically, before the pandemic, I was like 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, so this is just recently. Like you were going back and forth just recently.
I did it for like 3 years.
Okay.
And then, this year it's been a little bit different, obviously.
California sounds very interesting. Sounds like
LA's nice.
Sounds expensive, and like I feel like I would be very tempted to like have my life consumed by work though. Like it would be almost like impossible to not, because I like to build things. I like to do all those things that you're talking
Yeah.
about. I feel like it would consume me. I don't know if that would be a good or
Yeah.
bad thing. Yeah.
Well, I think it's like, you know, it's just different, right? Like I host meetups in, you know, both coasts and also in the mid, you know, in the mid, is it called the Midwest? I don't know. Is Kansas City Midwest?
I don't know. I don't know these US terms.
Yeah. So, but like, you know, in the Bay Area, you know, the meetup goes till 10 o'clock and you're kicking people out. You're like, come on, leave people, right?
Okay.
Mhm.
And then in Raleigh, North Carolina, where people, you know, everybody like who's 30 basically has, you know, 2 or 3 kids already.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, everyone's gone by 9.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's a very different culture. And I also found it quite interesting because you think about like why this happens, right? Why do people in the Bay Area or New York, you know, or, you know, some of these other places, like start life later, right? Like, for example, all my friends in the Bay Area, you know, even up to 40, like are just starting to have kids or don't have kids yet.
Wow.
Mhm.
But then like everybody in North Carolina, everyone has kids.
Yeah. In their 20s,
You know?
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always in their 20s. Yeah. I don't know. It's, I'm sure it's just like I said, if I went there, I'm sure it would consume a lot more of me than is consuming me now where I live. And I think, yeah, you just would always put off the family thing. It just seems
Well,
like the natural thing.
I think it's also because like if you can buy a house, you know, you
Oh,
can
that
buy,
too.
you
Yeah.
can buy a house for like, so as an adult, you think about it, right? Like it's like, oh, okay, you know, I'm an adult. Okay, I'm going to buy a house. Okay, I'm going to
Mhm.
get married. You know, I'm going to have kids, right?
Mm.
But in the Bay Area, like you can't even really buy a house until you're like 35, 40, you know, something like that, because you have to have this like $150,000 plus down payment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So then like, you know, you haven't progressed in your mind because you still have roommates. Like even if I bought a house, when I was looking to buy a house in the Bay Area, I was like, well, I need to have 3 roommates in order to make the bills.
Yeah, which doesn't sound ideal, yeah, for having a family. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's definitely a factor. And with $1 million house, that's like well, I don't know, $4,000 mortgage or something like that too. Even if you put
I think it's
150,
way more.
depending on how much you put down, plus like
That's-
property tax, house insurance,
Yeah.
food,
It
you're
just
up
makes you
there.
not want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
People
So
always do the cost benefit analysis of Bay Area and
what
everything elsewhere.
can we talk about, because I know we don't have very much time.
Yeah.
Can we talk about your company now? Because it
Yeah.
sounds very interesting. I took a look at your website and it's like some of your services sound really interesting. I want to know more about it.
Yeah.
Like tell us about some of the services that you offer. I was just going through the list here. The way I see it, there's kind of 2 main categories. I think like there's like consulting and service and like a service, and then there's also like education and apprenticeship. That's kind of the 2 categories that I see. But I mean, tell me more if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think generally our belief at this dot is really to just make the world a better place, right? So we have this dot labs and this dot media. Media is where we're just educating the general JavaScript ecosystem, development ecosystem. And this dot labs is kind of where we make our money, but our philosophy is kind of the same. So when we work with clients, we don't just, you know, we're not just like people who come in and give you something or, you know, whatever it is, but we very much focus on, you know, making sure that the developers we work with become better, helping them create better processes, like focusing on teaching potentially and doing all this kind of like while delivering as well. So, you know, we do general staff augmentation, of course, consulting. A lot of people bring us in for more like high level architecture questions, or, you know, let's say you have a team and you're kind of like just needing to do, you know, an audit, or maybe you need to get, you know, a bunch of developers who may not be senior kind of on the right path. Like those are the types of things.
Like advice, mentorship for.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and that's through like pair programming. So a lot of our clients will set up things where it's just a retainer and, you know, there's a team of 10 developers and, you know, we pair with each one for 90 minutes a week through their hard problems, just to kind of, again, level them up.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So how do you find, so are these your employees or are they like all contractors that work for this dot labs?
They're all full-time people.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, employees, contractors, but they are full-time.
And do they all live in the Bay Area or some are remote?
No.
Okay.
I feel like okay, we have we have like one person who lives in the Bay Area. We're everywhere. So we're a team of about 50 people, and
Wow.
you know, whether it's like
That's huge.
Greece
Wow.
or Ukraine or Japan or
So what brought these people to you? Why did they join this Labs? That's a lot of people, and I'm assuming they're very high level programmers, because the things you talk about require senior knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends, right? Like, I mean, we've, you know, because of our reputation in the industry and because of, you know, my general friend circle, right? Like, we've definitely entertained hiring a lot of people who, you know, like have a lot of, you know, name brand recognition in the industry. And, but one of the things we always do is just make sure there's also a cultural fit, right? Like, you can be amazing and like be like the best open source person in the entire world, but like we really care about like education and culture and like you know, making sure people care about mentorship versus like I'm the hottest thing in the entire world, you know, like bow down to me.
Yeah, a dick. Somebody who's unpleasant to be around.
Yeah, so like that's one thing that we've definitely made sure that we have in our culture. You know, we also have this mission to help underrepresented folks in the community. So we're minority certified, women business owned, and we have this apprenticeship program where we try to help women, you know, and underrepresented folks like get their first job. So like the bridge between boot camp and first job, right?
Oh, see, okay, that's really cool too. Yeah. So the other side of your business is not just making money. It's you help and you mentor people looking to get their first job or their first kind of freelance clients, if I'm not wrong.
It's really their first job. Like we have a contract to hire program where you know, a lot of companies are talking about, you know, increasing their diversity pipeline. And we're like, okay, well, you can do that through us. You can basically do this contract to hire situation, test somebody out. And the great part about it is, you know, it's kind of, I mean, you know, for a lot of people, it's kind of scary to just like be thrown into your first tech job. But when you do contract to hire with us, those people who are, you know, we consider them apprentices, they are actually assigned a mentor and we kind of guide them along the journey before.
Sounds great.
Join. Yeah.
Sounds ideal. That when I read that, I wasn't sure if I was understanding it right on your website, but that sounds like really ideal. Cause yeah, making that transition from like, whether you're self-taught, whether you went to boot camp, even whether you went to school to that first job is difficult, and it's difficult to sell. Like it's very hard to get that first job. If you go through your website and you have a senior mentor, that is very reassuring to an employer, I think, because you have that like you have something behind you that you know they're going to be supported. That's cool. So if like people watching this podcast right now needed some help getting their first job, how would they do that on your website?
There is, if you go to opensourceforall.com, there's places where you can apply for the apprentice program. Or like if you're a company and you're trying to, you know, get more people, you know, get more underrepresented folks in your pipeline, you know, you can just go to this.labs.com and there should be a contact us form there as well.
Cool. So what are some of the coolest projects that you guys have worked on at this.labs?
Well, right now we're building this really cool with one company that I can't mention, but it's also a really cool company.
Nobody can ever mention the company. This is a problem with podcasts.
It just makes it sound cooler if you say that I can't talk about it.
Well, they always say that. It's always like, so, I worked on this really cool thing, but I can't talk about it, and I can't tell you who it was. And I'm like, okay, great.
Well, this is a learning platform. So these people are trying to basically make it. They're basically trying to create like web.dev, but for, you know, but that like covers more topics and is kind of like a little bit more, I don't know. I mean, web.dev is pretty beginner friendly, but
web.dev.
Yeah. So that's created by Google, web.dev. And it's I mean, it's a really good place. I mean, that's where I learned all about performance, for example. I feel like that's like the only place, well, one of the best places to learn about web performance. But yeah, so that's cool. We recently just built a conference application for a company, and they were expecting like 20,000 people to join this conference.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That in like 3 months or something like that, which was totally crazy. So
That's pretty cool.
yeah, fun things like that. I want to pitch to this one company. They have this innovation fund, and I want to pitch this idea of like building some sort of tool where like, somebody can take pictures of their medication and know like, did you take your medication or did you not? Or like, what pills are you missing? Or is this the right dosage for this type of thing? So those are the things we get excited about, but it's all about pitching and seeing if somebody actually wants to do it or not.
So what's the next thing for you?
Oh, the next thing, I don't know.
You're going to sell bread, right? I feel like that's what you said at the start.
Go back to your roots. Start selling jewelry again.
Jewelry will always be a thing for me, I feel like.
For sure.
But no, I think it's definitely, we're excited because we're spinning out some products out of this Labs, and, like any consultancy, that's what consultancies do. So we're building a really cool performance tool called Perf Buddy, which we'll be launching at some point in time in the next few months.
Okay.
So that'll be interesting. And we're thinking about other projects, like what other things can we do to help developers in the world? We've been talking about creating maybe like a global CLI, or maybe like a CLI that has good presets for things like the Jamstack, for example.
Okay.
I don't know.
What do you mean by a global CLI? Like a tool that, like, for all languages?
Yeah, for all languages, or like, if you need to set up like React with Gatsby with something else, or like, I mean, I think right now what we're starting to see in the industry is like this very I don't want to call it component based, but like this, you're stitching things together, right? And so like, as you're stitching more tools together, you spend a lot of time like just needing to do initial setup. So you spend your first like week or so just doing setup of these tools that you always do, right? Like you probably have your starter packs.
Right.
But like, imagine if there was a CLI that basically said like, oh yeah, I just want to stitch together X, Y, and Z with these presets done.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. I think that's sort of what like DigitalOcean tried to do with their app platform, I think, sort of anyway, because you can just like, well, they say, I tried it, didn't work the way it said it was going to work. But yeah, they say like you put in your Git repository and it looks at it and will like stitch it all together for you. All of the things that you need to build that repository, which would be super handy because like you said, there's a ton of things in the setup process, what database you're going to use, what language you're going to use, what other tools you're going to use, stitching them all together, getting them all work together. But yeah, as far as I can tell, it wasn't ready.
Yeah. I think Stackblitz as well is another one of our clients that we love working with. And they have some really cool announcements, coming in the new year. But I just think it's really going to change the landscape of, other tools like Stackblitz. So, oh my gosh, I'm blanking right now on Stackblitz competitors, but like JS Fiddle, Stackblitz is kind of like a JS Fiddle, for example.
Okay.
So that'll be really interesting, and I'm curious to see how that goes.
So, do you code a lot still, or are you focused on business stuff?
I wish. Last year was really hard coming to terms with it. I used to spend like half my time doing development, at least, Okay. These days it's like 10%. It makes me really sad, but somebody has to do all the other stuff.
Yeah, I think that's like it's a sad truth that programmers who become business
Success.
leaders.
Yeah, it's when you get successful is when you get to do less of what you love.
Well, you say get, but she is obviously upset about it. So it's,
Sure.
it's not,
Sure. Yeah.
Grass is always
Yeah.
greener.
Yeah.
Grass is always greener.
I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about that too. Like if for whatever reason I had a business and I had employees and I had to stop coding, I really would not like that because I like to just, for sure.
I keep trying to get my husband to join the company. I'm like, please just join the company and deal with all the stuff I don't want to deal with. He's like, well, what would I do? I'm like, you would do all the stuff I don't want to do.
Whatever I tell you.
He's like, oh, I don't know. I mean, it probably will never happen, but
that's the dream.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a 1% chance, but
you still hope. Ask for the next birthday and Christmas for 10 years. Just say,
I know, right?
Yeah. So learning to program, you mentioned earlier that you did not start out a programmer. So how did you learn, and what do you think is the best way to learn, and what tips would you suggest people thinking about, making that transition?
Community was a huge thing for me. So I think getting on Twitter and it's just talking about you learning is really important. I even remember when Angular came out with their new router, for example, and I had no idea how the hell to hook it up. There was this one stupid little thing that, obviously wasn't documented because it was an alpha. And, one of my friends just, from Twitter just said yeah, cool, let me help you. So there's a lot of things like that. And I think a lot of it is, for me, learning with people. So I just, it's just easier for me to talk through it with somebody. Mm-hmm. I think that's huge. I think also just getting started and building something, right? When I first learned how to code, I was building a ton of websites every single day. Just stupid little things. But
you just randomly try and do stuff, basically.
Yeah, oh, I know HTML. Oh, I know CSS. Oh, I know how to make this thing spin around. Oh, cool. And I still remember my boyfriend at the time. He was like, oh, okay, she's trying to do so much. Okay, let me introduce you to Ember. And once he introduced me to Ember and Material, I was like, done. And I just, built real websites. From then.
Yeah, I think there's this transitional stage. My friend is going through it right now too, because he's trying to learn how to code, and it always starts HTML, CSS, and you're like, wow, this is they get so excited about it, and they're like, this is amazing, but the things they're building are super, super ugly, and then they see some other tool that makes it easier. I don't know what Ember is, but I'm assuming it's some kind of a material design.
Or React. No, it's Ember.js. It's basically another JavaScript framework.
Okay, but it makes things look and feel better on your website, probably.
It's like the JavaScript version of Rails.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
JavaScript version of Rails. Okay. So yeah. So then it's a framework that makes the structuring and the architecture of your website building process easier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it. With that, it just made it, I think, so much easier to, and material design, I just used the material design librry.
Yeah, it's
and
awesome.
then I was able to make everything beautiful. Why would you do,
Why would you not?
You?
Yeah. So I'm hearing building things. I'm hearing get on Twitter and follow a bunch of programmers.
Yeah, talk about it.
Talk about. See, Rob, I told you, you need to be on Twitter.
You do?
I know. I'm trying. I just don't get it. But I'm working on it.
It's honestly awesome. It's exactly how she's describing it. I can't even count the number of times when I've run into an issue and I just tweet, why won't this BS work or something? And then tons of responses. And it's always just, usually some weird thing that is not documented and they know through experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. So try to build things, become part of a community.
Yep.
That seems like the top two. I would also agree. So, do you have any more time?
I don't.
Okay, we're out then. You're a busy lady.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for coming on.
You always send me a 30-minute calendar invite. I was like, oh, we're doing it this short? Okay.
I don't know how to do... I've never even sent a calendar invite before, to be honest. Usually I just say, hey, we're doing it this time.
I was very shocked to get one as well. I normally never get an invite from Mitch. I just get an email that says, this is what's happening.
Yeah. Tracy wanted a calendar invite. So I'm like, oh, okay, how do I do this?
Oh my God. Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's my fault. I should be technically... Yeah, we can do another one if you want, because you're like you have a lot of stuff going on, and
Yeah.
it's very interesting. So anyway, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
And if anyone wants to know more about you and your service, where can they find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Lady Leet. Or you can also just go to, this.labs.com. It's this.labs.com. It's terrible.
I like it. I thought it was
that's cool.
I thought it was a clever little name.
Yeah, but it's terrible to spell, right?
Yes, definitely
this
terrible to
dot
spell.
What? Yeah. But anyways, yeah. But it was so nice chatting and hanging out, and I hope to see you guys on Twitter. Rob, I hope to see you on Twitter soon.
I'll be on Twitter. I'll follow you in like the next 5 minutes. That'll probably be my
Well, we'll
action.
chat.
Yeah.
We'll have some
Awesome.
tweets. Okay, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
See you later.